On the line, we have someone I would call a premier intellectual of our time. He has authored dozens of books dealing with the subjects of race, religion, politics, autobiographies on Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., Marvin Gaye, Barack Obama, Bill Cosby, Tupac, and Jay-Z. Very happy to have on the line Michael Eric Dyson. Mr. Dyson, how are you, sir?
Fine, sir. Thank you for having me this morning.
Here we are, 7 days until the world is impacted one way or another, either positively or negatively. What would you say are the closing arguments for this campaign?
Well, look, on the positive side, Kamala Harris has obviously made a tremendous argument in defense of those who love democracy. And not just, in the liberal camp, not just in the Democratic camp, not just in the progressive camp, not just in the, quote, left-leaning camp, but in the camp of even centrists. And as we've seen, some Republicans who are prizing the prospect of keeping democracy alive. We hear a lot of times hyperbole and exaggeration about this is the greatest election or the most important election or the most consequential election of our lifetimes. And each one might be true, but this one certainly is. Because what is on the ballot is not simply a choice of candidates who are vying for the highest office in the land and the most powerful position in the world. What is on that ballot is a vision of America, either as a progressive, open-minded, embracing all human beings, welcoming those who are different, not otherizing them, but laying before them the prospect of maintaining and preserving a democracy that we've cherished for this long time, as imperfect as it has been. On the other side is a bigoted, willfully delusional, utterly incompetent set of people who hate the very prospect of real democracy because they don't want to subject themselves to it. If I don't win, therefore the election is rigged. Speaking about Puerto Ricans, as we saw on Sunday in Madison Square Garden, African-American people, Latinos, across the board, anybody who doesn't fit into a narrow cookie-cutter version of what their right-wing, reactionary politics are, is not fit to be considered a citizen. So those are the issues. Those are the options we have. And Kamala Harris, above all, represents the integrity and the character of this nation at its best.
Professor, Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton both, I think, took a lot of criticism, and maybe it was warranted and it was fair, that they didn't do enough for black men, black women, etc. It does seem to me that Kamala Harris is running a very smart campaign, and she is looking at where the deficiencies were in previous campaigns and candidates and making sure that she is checking all of the boxes. The black male agenda, Barack Obama didn't necessarily have a spelled out, detailed, multi-page black male agenda. Kamala Harris does. Do you think that it is enough to encourage African-American men to support this candidacy and to discourage them from supporting Donald Trump, who literally has nothing but treachery in store for black men?
Yes, sir. So beautifully stated and eloquently articulated. Yeah, I think so. Look, you're absolutely right. You look at what people, even if you like them and admire them, did before you. Even with Joe Biden, a remarkable human being who will go down as one of the greatest presidents we've had, and a one-term president doing more, I would argue, for black people than any president since LBJ. But when you look at what the pitfalls are, when you look at what the deficiencies are, when you look at what they might have been blind to or not observant of, it makes sense for you to fill in the gaps. And I think it makes sense for Kamala Harris to look at, what happens. If your pinky finger on your hand is hurting, it doesn't insult the other four fingers to pay attention to the pinky finger. You want the whole hand to do well. And I think she's looking at those areas of blight, of neglect, of vulnerability, and addressing them. Will it be enough? I think so. I think that she has given every indication that she's deeply committed and profoundly considerate of every sector of this society. And it need not be a zero-sum game. If I take care of you, it means I'm neglecting the other person. No. This is part of the whole. This is what it means to be an American citizen, where the strong look out for the weak, where the powerful look out for those who are more vulnerable. Not in a condescending way, but in a way that says, I hear you, I pay attention to you, I want you to be considered part of the whole, and as a result of that, I address the issues that you have. So I think that in that sense, she is making a powerful argument. And again, the other side is giving an unforced assist, so to speak. They're making unforced errors. The kind of vitriol and hatred that is being directed at every, segment of American society except, straight white men is remarkable. So the campaign that Kamala Harris is running is not premised upon or predicated on that man bad, therefore we must vote against him. No, she has a very positive agenda that looks out for the most vulnerable, that wants to redistribute wealth to the middle class, that wants to talk about issues of importance to those constituencies, and also at least begin to remedy some of the persistent poverty that plagues so many of our people. But at the same time, it cannot be ignored that the other side is doing every darn thing possible to remind us why they don't belong in office to begin with.
On the line, Professor Michael Eric Dyson. Professor Dyson, her coalition is broad, and this is something I want to ask you specifically. In your many years of examining American politics, have you ever seen so many Republicans, including people that served in the previous Republican presidential administration, agree to support and endorse a Democrat? Have you ever seen anything like this before?
I ain't never seen it, brother. I have never seen. She got more Republicans for her than some Republican candidates who lost. I mean, she's got people that you would have never imagined. Dick Cheney, Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, of course, and the Republicans who were never Trumpers and the like. You got Bill Kristol, a remarkably pedigreed intellectual on the right, or at least among conservatives, supporting her and standing with her. So it is remarkable that these people care more about their country than their clique, more about the prospects of democracy than their party. And it is rather striking. I have never, in all of my years of witnessing, observing, reflecting upon, and reading about past elections, even occurring before my time, I've never seen anything like this. And I think that is an index of the desperation that so many millions of citizens feel in the face of a man who is increasingly unhinged, who is mentally unstable. To say to America that we've got to find an alternative to that in Kamala Harris is that. I mean, think about it. Joe Biden was, if you will, besieged by the American media, including liberal media and others of, he's slow, he can't speak, what's going on. Well, when we look at Donald Trump with his rambling, incoherent, desultory, speeches, we have got to conclude that this man is not well. He's not only politically unwell, he may be mentally unwell, and certainly in terms of his spiritual values, highly questionable. So I have never seen the kind of galvanizing and coherent expression of consideration for the other side that Republicans are now expressing in light of the manifest damage and destruction that Donald Trump brings in his wake.
Professor, I find it interesting that they have these different demographic groups, and then we also have political affiliations for said groups, like white men without a college degree are supporting Trump. Yet Black men without college degrees, more often than not, are supporting Kamala Harris. And then you have the white evangelicals. And this is what I want to ask you. Black evangelicals are not supporting Donald Trump. How much of this is just, it's race?
It is, man. I mean, look, you've brilliantly expressed that, because the other side says, if you vote for Kamala Harris, she's not good for Christians. What Christians you talking about? You see, I'm an ordained Baptist minister for more than 40 years. I'm an atheist to that God. I don't know that God. Martin Luther King Jr. said, I think it was in the letter from Birmingham jail, and certainly preached it, that sometimes I look at their churches of these white bigots and wonder, who is their God? We don't know him. We don't know her. We don't know it. We don't know what that force is of hatred and vitriol that despises the very people that we claim God loves. When we look at, evangelicals, that is so true. An evangelical is a person who believes you got to be saved, born again, come to Christ. That ain't no preserve and copyright of the right wing. And so we've got to make serious efforts to distinguish working class people. Uneducated people who are black are overwhelmingly for Kamala Harris. So it can't be class or religion. The real religion among many of these right-wingers and these evangelicals is whiteness. So that when we hear Franklin Graham, assailing her, when we hear Donnie Swaggart, Jimmy Swaggart's son, claiming that to vote for her is to vote for somebody going to hell and is evil. No, my friend. You are the very embodiment of that Beelzebubian inclination, that devilish inspiration to say that only I am right and no one else can possibly be right. So, yes, we got to make those distinctions. And what it comes down to the issue of race for sure.
Professor, minister, and one of the most profound intellectuals of our time, Michael Eric Dyson, thank you so much. You really helped us make the case, and we appreciate you taking the time this morning.
Thank you for your brilliant and eloquent work. Keep it up, my friend.
All right. Thank you so much. You're listening to The Truth with Sherwin Hughes on 101.7 FM. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back.